All right. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. We want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining me today. If you would, I would love for you to go ahead and type into the chat box where you're connecting from and even what you do for a living. Also, if you can hear me, please go ahead and type into the chat box that you can hear me okay. Okay, so I'm just going to take a minute or two to let people come into the room and let you introduce yourself. My name is Michael Williams, and this webinar is going to last about 30 minutes, and then I'm just going to leave a little bit of time at the end for a few questions and answers, okay? So I'm going to try to monitor as well comments, but I'll do that at various points during the webinar, mostly at the end. But right now, I just want to check to make sure you can hear me okay. Okay, so I'm just going to you'll see me looking down, and that's the reason that I'm doing that. And we'll be getting started in just a moment. All right, so if you can hear me, please go ahead and type into the chat box that you can hear me successfully, that you can hear me okay. And also type into the chat box where you're connecting from. Okay, so let me just make sure that we've got that going. All right. So it's wonderful to have everyone here. We've got lots of people signed up today, and we just want to make sure that everyone is getting in okay. Hopefully you can see and you can hear me. So go ahead and let me know that if you'll type that into the chat box, please. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And once again, like I said, I'm going to be monitoring the chat as best as I can as we do get started. So today we're going to be talking about why you stutter and how to fix it. The number one reason that you stutter and how to fix it. Now, let me explain just a little bit. There are those of you who stutter in a way that it's very persistent. That is, you may stutter or stammer most of the time in most of your conversations. And even with you, there may be situations in which you stutter or stammer more. There are also some of you who barely stutter or stammer at all, just in certain situations. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that is, but there's another video that I did, another training that has to do with the 7 common situations that trigger stuttering. So I'd like for you to look that up, and I'll try to put a link in an email that I send you shortly, where you can take a look and look at the different speaking situations that actually may trigger stuttering or stammering for you. But in this video, we're looking at the number one reason, okay? The number one reason. All right, so let's get on with it and talk about this number one reason. And then I'm going to give you 2 solutions, and they're both related, okay? Number one reason, give you 2 solutions. Remember, they're both related. So the number one reason, in fact, before I get to that, let me just say this. Some of you who are watching this video may not know much about me. So I'm just going to give you a very, very, very brief introduction and also provide a link for you to go and hear my story, because I don't want to take up the time sharing my whole story in this webinar. But I do want to give you a brief introduction. And that is to say, and some of you may not believe this, but yes, I did used to stutter. From the time I was very young. I remember going to speech therapy in school, right, when I was in, 2nd grade, something like that, 2nd or 3rd grade. And so I struggled with stuttering all the way up into my adulthood, into my mid to late 20s or so. And I stumbled upon a way to overcome this, right? To actually turn my speech, change my speech from a liability to what? To an advantage, right? From something that was taking away from my life, something that was limiting my life, to something that would be one of my greatest assets. And many, many, many years later, I decided to create a system, to create some resources to help people who, like myself, had been struggling with stuttering, but felt like they wanted to do more and felt like they wanted to use their speech to make their lives better, but also to make the lives of others better. So I did struggle with stuttering. I know what it's like. I know what it feels like. There are still times now where I get stuck. Notice the words that I use, get stuck. I use those words for a very specific reason, because you have to change your identity. You can't hold on to the identity of a stutterer. I stutter, I'm a stutterer. And at the same time, transform your identity, your beliefs, your attitudes, and your speech. Transform them into a person that speaks well. You can't hold on to it. The truth is, everyone has disfluencies. I was in a conversation last night, and the lady clearly doesn't stutter, never really struggled with that. She said, sometimes I stutter. So we talked about that. Everyone has disfluencies. The numbers are around that people, that generally on average, people are about 95% fluent, right? So yeah, there are people who might be at sometimes they're 100% fluent, or they're 80% fluent, right? But no one's 100% fluent 100% of the time. This is very important to understand, because we're all going to have this fluency. So you have to accept that, right? So I wanted you to know that that I'm not a scammer or a fraudster, that I truly understand what it's like to get stuck. In fact, even now when I speak in Spanish, there are times when I would say I literally like stutter. When I say stutter, I mean get stuck. Some of you may refer to this as block, right? And that's because that's not my primary language, and there's some fear around it. But quickly, very, very, very quickly, I become more relaxed. I smooth out my speech, and I'm able to speak well. So I still know what it feels like to get stuck, to not be able to say what you want to say, right? I still understand that. And I use all the same techniques that I share with you in Spanish. In English, I essentially don't struggle. Do I still get stuck? Of course I do. Everyone does. So I wanted you to know that. That's very, very important. Okay, so what we're going to do now, and please, if you're here and you're listening, go ahead and again share with me where you're from and what you do for a living. All right, so let's talk about this number one reason you stutter. There are situations that can trigger stuttering. There are certain situations for certain people that can trigger stuttering more than other situations. And we discussed that in the 7 common situations that trigger stuttering. But the one common thread throughout all of these things, throughout all of these situations, is this word that I'm about to share with you now. And it's called, and hopefully you can see this, but I'm going to speak it anyway. So even if you can't see it clearly, it's okay. Anticipation. It's called anticipation. So hopefully you can see that. It's called anticipation. So anticipation. So that's the word, and that's the number one reason that many people, even people who've never really struggled with stuttering, that's the number one reason that they often get stuck, that they stutter or they stumble over their words. So what does this word mean, and what does it have to do with stuttering? So if you go back and you research this word and look it up, and even if you look up the etymology of the word, you'll find that this word anti comes from, or is a different version of this word ante, which means before, And then the rest of the word comes from a word, and I believe this is the correct spelling, capere. And it means, so this means before, and this means to take. So this word here has to do with to take hold of, beforehand. So what happens when we anticipate? What we're doing is we are imagining, we have we have a preconception, we are often visualizing, we are taking hold of something in the future that hasn't happened yet. We're taking hold of something in the future that hasn't happened yet. So this means that if you have a speaking situation, a meeting that's coming up, if you have a telephone call or a conference call, an interview, a presentation, what all of us do is we anticipate that event, right? We take hold of it in our minds beforehand. And the unfortunate thing is that the way that we take hold of it is often negatively. So we go out and we look at the event and we begin to imagine or to think or to hope that we speak well or that we don't mess up or that the same thing that happened the last time or another time doesn't happen this time. And so what this anticipation does is it often sets us up for failure. Okay, it sets us up for failure. So what's very important is to understand that we all anticipate. The only question is how you anticipate. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We all are going to anticipate. Sometimes this anticipation comes in two forms. Sometimes it's both. But one is conscious, that we consciously think about this upcoming event. We consciously think about it. The second way is subconscious. We automatically begin to respond, like physiologically and even emotionally. We just have a reaction or a response that's automatic. We don't have to consciously think. If we know that something is coming up, like an interview, like a meeting, or we have to ask a question, we just begin to respond in a certain way automatically. What are some of these responses? Well, sometimes people begin to sweat. Sometimes they become very anxious. Their breathing becomes shallow. Sometimes something starts to happen in our stomach. Our stomach gets a little upset. Our speech begins to get very short and tight and fast. So all of these things can happen automatically without us even thinking about it, just by knowing, anticipating that something is going to happen. And then again, there are those times, like we mentioned, where you begin to consciously think and say to yourself, oh, wow, I hope I don't say something stupid. I hope I don't sound stupid. I hope I can sound intelligent. I hope I can say this or articulate my thoughts clearly. I hope I'm not mumbling. I hope I don't stutter. I hope I don't stammer. Well, if I try to use these words, I know I am going to stutter. So what do I have to do then? I have to change. So all these things are going through our mind. This is all due to anticipation, to take hold of beforehand. Now, anticipation itself is not negative, right? It's neutral. We can anticipate with excitement. We can anticipate with energy and enthusiasm, with positivity, or we can anticipate negatively with doom and with gloom. So the question is, how are you going to anticipate, right? That's the big question, isn't it? So it's how are you going to anticipate, right? How are you going to anticipate? That's the question. This is so powerful. So the title of this webinar, this training, is the number one reason you stutter and how to fix it. The number one reason that many people, most people, right? And I'm not saying it's the cause, the root cause. It could be genetic, could be something like that. Could have been because of a stroke, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about those of you who find that in some situations you speak either better or you don't stutter at all, right? And in other situations, you stutter a little bit or you stutter more, or you stutter a lot, right? So talking about those kinds of situations, the number one reason has to do with conscious or or subconscious anticipation. You consciously think through and begin to ask yourself questions. I hope I don't. Well, what if I? or it just happens automatically. Now, what's going on when this happens automatically? What's happening when it happens automatically? What happens is your brain is going in and it's experiencing this particular situation. And this can happen when you're in the situation, you're on the call, you're in the meeting, you're in the interview, and you begin to anticipate. Or it could happen prior to, leading up to the situation, right? But your brain goes in and it says, okay, we're on this conference call, we're in this meeting. And it looks for patterns because there's a lot of things going on in your mind. You have information that you're trying to give, information that you want to get. And so a lot of things are going on. So your brain doesn't really have time to think about how it wants to speak, right? How it wants to control the way you speak. So it looks for patterns. So it immediately, it goes forward and it says, okay, here's a situation. Here's what's going to be happening. There's going to be people there. I'm going to supervisors. There's going to be colleagues, or whatever the case may be. Then it goes back and it says, have we ever been in this kind of a situation before? Have we been in this situation or a situation like this? And if the answer is yes, and chances are the answer is yes, you've been in interviews, you've been on conference calls, you've been in meetings, it goes back and it says, okay, how did we respond that time? And if you had a bad experience, a bad speaking situation where you kind of got stuck and you're a little anxious, then it takes that and says, okay, this is how we're supposed to act now then. So we don't really have to think about how to act, how to speak. We have an example, we have a pattern that we established before in the last call, in the last interview, in the last meeting, the last presentation, in the last conversation. So let's just take this pattern, bring it forward, and play it. And so that's what's happening when you find yourself automatically reacting and responding in situations that you have, right? So what do we need to do to change this? What do we need to do to change this? What we need to do, two things, right? I'm going to give you two solutions. They both kind of go together. Number one, you want to, now watch this. I'm going to actually go ahead and put this on a separate sheet here. Number one, these are the solutions, okay? So number one, you want to go ahead and take control over your what? Train of thinking. I'll explain this in just a moment. Your train of thinking. You want to take control over your train of thinking. Now, what do I mean when I say train of thinking? I'm just going to step to the side so you can see that. We all have a way that we think. And so you may have heard the expression train of thinking. So your train of thinking is kind of your attitude. It's your way of thinking. It's your habitual way of thinking. It also can come from your beliefs about yourself, about your ability to speak well, about stuttering, stammering, about how other people see you. So it's a train of thinking. And what many people do is they simply allow their trains to take them wherever it's going, right? So they're not the conductor of their train. Someone or something else is. I want you to listen to this. This is critically important. If you're not the conductor of your own train of thinking, then your thoughts will drift. They will become unfocused, or they'll focus on the wrong things. We'll talk about this too. And they'll go in many different directions. So what we see happens is in certain speaking situations, our focus, our train of thinking, shifts from communicating. Now, here are two things I want you to remember. When you're communicating, two of your primary goals should be clarity. I want to make sure that what I'm saying, the content of my speech, is clear. I want to make sure that my style of speaking is clear. I want to make sure that the way I've structured my content is clear. Clarity. So if I'm mumbling, and if I'm speaking too fast, and if what I'm saying is confusing and it's not relevant, then it's going to be unclear, it's going to be unsatisfying, it's going to confuse the listener. Does this make sense? So our number one goal should be clarity, both in the style, how I'm speaking. I want to make sure it's clear, make sure that you can hear me clearly. I want to make sure the content, that the information that I'm delivering, that I'm communicating is clear. I want to make sure that the way it's structured is clear. 1, 2, 3. It's not all over the place. The other thing that I want to make sure of, which is related to this first one, is that it has impact. So if I'm speaking, if I were just standing here speaking monotone like this, you probably would not be listening to me, right? You wouldn't even be in this webinar. You're like, that guy is very boring. I can't stand to listen to him. It drives, makes me want to pull my hair out, right? So you want to make sure that you're speaking in an engaging way. And in the Pro 90D speech system, we provide you with skills that you can learn that will help you speak well, that will help you speak in a way that's engaging, that's enthusiastic, that's exciting, right? And it can be you. It doesn't have, you don't have to speak like some person who's outside of your personality type, okay? So what's very important here then is that you have clarity and impact. So the focus of your conversation, the focus of your speech should be, am I saying this clearly? Am I having an impact? Am I having an impact on this person? When you shift your focus away from that and you start to think about, this is your train of thinking, your train of thinking just starts thinking about, wow, that person, man, when they speak, it's so clear. They're so articulate. I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. Or, oh, I hope that when I speak, I sound intelligent. I hope I don't say something stupid. Hope I don't fumble over my words. Then my colleagues or this interviewer or my supervisor, my boss will say, oh, that person's not very articulate. Or, I thought they were intelligent. And I hope I don't stutter or stammer or get stuck. So when you shift your thinking to that, and you're thinking about, oh, I wonder what they're thinking of me. I wonder what they would think of me if I stutter, if I stammer, if I get stuck. When your train of thinking goes there, then where is it not? Right? When it's there, then it can't be on clarity and impact because it's over here. And once that happens, once it shifts over here and it kind of stays there, then what you've done is you've anticipated, you've gone out in that moment, you start anticipating all the bad things, and you actually trigger or cause the very things to happen that you don't want to happen, right? You actually trigger more stuttering. You actually trigger unclearness, like where you're just not clear. Because first of all, you're becoming a little more anxious. You probably start to speak faster. Your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain now, is starting to shut down some because you're becoming more anxious and fearful. So you're not thinking or speaking as clearly as you could, right? You're beginning to respond and to react and become fearful, and then the breath gets shorter and all those, that fear response. And this happens to varying degrees, right? So what you want to do is you want to be very relaxed and you want to control your train of thinking so that you're focused on the goals, the things that you should be focused on, which is how can I make sure that I'm impacting and that I'm communicating and articulating as clearly as I can to the audience, to the interviewer, to the people on the phone meeting. And if you keep your focus there, that is, you become the conductor of your own train of thinking, of your own train of thought, and you're going to find that your speech is much smoother, that it's much clearer, and that it's much more confident, that you're speaking with greater authority and enthusiasm, right? That you're capturing attention of the people that you're speaking with. When you shift your focus, to making sure that you're literally, you can call it serving your audience, that you're making sure that you're putting them first. You're not thinking about yourself and what they're thinking of. And I hope I don't, you're focusing on how can I serve my audience? How can I make sure it's clear? This is crystal clear. And the more you do this, initially you have to consciously shift your train of thinking back to this. But eventually it becomes subconscious. It becomes automatic where you just, everything that you do, everything that you say, the way that you prepare is geared towards serving your audience. Okay. This becomes very natural and automatic. So solution is to take control of your train of thinking. You become the conductor of your train of thinking. Very, very important. Okay. That's one solution. So how do you do that? Well, you have to control your inner dialogue, your self-talk, let's call it. Your inner dialogue or your self-talk, right? So the how is your self-talk. You can call this many, many, many different things, but your self-talk or your inner dialogue, you want to be able to control that. Because if you don't control it, if you're not the conductor of your train of thinking, then it will drift over to those things we talked about before. It will drift to the negativity side, right? It'll just drift there naturally because it's kind of a natural human thing to worry about how other people see us, to worry about our performance. But we can counteract that, if you will, by taking control and by actually talking to ourselves, by telling ourselves certain things. It's our inner dialogue, our self-talk. We can tell ourselves certain things that will shift our focus and therefore shift our performance and boost our performance, right? We can tell ourselves certain things that shifts our performance and our focus. Does this make sense? So you want to talk to yourself leading up to whatever the event is, if you've thought about it, or if you're in the situation, you can begin to talk to yourself. And yes, you do have time. You do have the mental capacity to talk to yourself while you're speaking, right? You can, just in a pause, you can talk to yourself while the other person's speaking. Before you have to speak, you can actually just inject little quick thoughts. So just calm down, just relax. You can do this. You can say, all right, you can do that. My clients tell me that they do, and they tell me that when they do it, that it makes all the difference in the world. So you can do that. What's the second solution? And I'm going to give you something else in just a moment here in terms of how to put these two things together. The second solution here is to fill your mind with what? Let's call it inspirational and instructional content. Let's call it content. Okay. So let me just say that for you in case you're not able to read my scribbling. It's to fill your mind with inspirational and instructional content. To fill your mind with inspirational and instructional content. What we mean then is that you want to make sure, and the best way to do this is through audio listening, right? You can read books. It's not the same. You can watch videos, right? But the best way that I've found to actually keep my mind filled, to immerse my mind in positive, constructive, inspirational, and instructional, not just inspirational, but instructional content material, the best way is using audios. Now, I have a whole audio library from Audible, and I've bought some things on iTunes. Years ago, I used to buy audio cassettes and listen to them in my car while I was driving. And it's a practice that I've had for many years. And if it weren't for this practice, I wouldn't be speaking the way I am now. I wouldn't be here, right? So it's through this audio listening, this imprinting and impressing. I have a program called Imprint Impress. I have a program called Passive Learning. These are audio programs, and they help to actually fill your mind with content that both encourages you and instructs you at the same time. So I have an audio library on things that are somewhat inspirational, motivational for my thinking, for my emotions, for my self-development, right? My personal development, and for business, right? And spirituality. So I have a whole library, and depending on what I need or what I'm thinking of and what I'm working on, I go into this library and I begin to listen. So I'll listen to audiobooks either several times a week or sometimes every day, right? Sometimes every day. It depends on the week, but I'm always listening to audiobooks every week. So the two things that you want to do to help yourself not negatively anticipate your speaking situations, that is leading up to the situation, during the situation, even after, how you reflect on that event, right? Oh man, I really messed up. And, or, you know what? All right, you didn't speak as well as you would like to have. Why? Okay, well, here's what we need to do to fix it. So let's go fix it, right? So, two things you can do: take control of your train of thinking leading up, during, and even after. The second thing is to fill your mind with content that's inspirational, instructional. Now, what do you fill your mind? What do you say to yourself? What kind of content? All right, so you can go out and you can try to figure out or create a set of affirmations or self-talk, right? An inner dialogue for yourself, right? What are you going to say to yourself? You can go out and try to find audio programs that can target your thoughts and your emotions as a person who has been struggling with their speech. You can go out and you can probably find some. Or you can go ahead and you can take advantage of the system that I've already put together by a person who struggled with this and for people who struggle with this, right? So I've already put together an entire system, entire program that helps you create the inner dialogue that you need to say to yourself every day while you're speaking, before you speak, after you speak, that gives you the audios that you need to help fill your mind, to wash your mind, to bathe your mind in material that's inspirational and instructional to help you begin thinking about yourself, about your ability to speak well, about your speaking situations, about your capacity even. These audios are targeted to help you do that. So what I want to do is give you an opportunity to take advantage of this, and hopefully you can see this. If you can, I'm going to be sending you an email, but what you're going to want to do is take advantage of our self-study premium program. And in this program, you're going to get the audios that you need to listen to every day. In fact, I am in the process of updating my course again. I update my course a couple of times a year at least. Why? Because I want to try to put myself out of business. I want to take the feedback I get from coaching clients and students and continue to revise and build a program that's simpler to use, that's more efficient, that gets you to your goal faster, that's more effective, right? That helps you get further and further along this confidence, clarity, fluence continuum, right? So I want to put myself out of business by designing programs that are even better, by updating the current program, make it even better. So I'm currently building out a program, mostly updates, rearranging some things, adding some extra videos to make things clearer, helping you establish a daily routine, making that clearer, giving you the actual audios that you need to listen to. This new platform that I'm going to be using comes with a mobile application. I'm not talking about the box application. It comes with its own mobile application where you can make available the videos and audios offline, and it's secure. And so you'll be able to go through, because I know most of us use our phones to do this, and I encourage you to actually do that so you can listen to the audios while you're traveling to and from work or while you're working out or walking. It's going to come with a mobile application, and obviously you can access it from online. So I'm building this out now, And those of you that are taking advantage of this will be able to get into this updated course at the same cost, right? So there's no upgrade fee or anything. So what I want you to do is to take advantage of the self-study premium right now. And I'm going to give you 10% off. There's a code in there. And I believe it says, I'm just going to take a look. Yeah, the code says like 10% off, right? Something like that. And you enter that code in. So you click the link. It takes you to the page that describes self-study premium. Then when you go to pay for it, you enter in that code in the coupon area and it'll take 10% off. That's only going to stay up for about 24 hours, okay? You can go up and you can get this course at any time, but you won't be able to get the 10% off. I'm only leaving that up for 24 hours. Now, so you're going to want to take a look at this self-study premium. It's kind of a great first step for some of you to be able to take control of your train of thinking. This is very difficult to do by yourself. It's going to take you a lot longer. Why not plug into a proven system, scientifically based, it's client tested? Why waste your time trying to figure out how to do that yourself? If you have the resources, then go ahead and invest in yourself and get the program. It'll help you take control of your thinking. It will help you by giving you the audios right. You have to create them. You have to go try to find them. They're right there. Some of you, though, are going to be ready because maybe you've been in my programs before and you've gotten to a certain level, but you're at a plateau. Some of you are going to be ready for coaching, for dynamic speech coaching. So what I want to do is go ahead and give you an opportunity to schedule some time with me, and you can go ahead and click that link, and hopefully it will take you to the right place. If it doesn't, then once again, I'm going to be sending an email that has all this information where you can schedule a breakthrough session with me, about a 30-minute session. Now, who is this for? This is only for those of you who are professionals, right? I work with many doctors. I work with people who are taking their masters, right? They're doing their master's program. I work with people who are project managers. I work with engineers. I work with other kinds of managers, right? So if you're a professional or you're professionally minded, you may be a student, but you're professionally minded, and you're willing and able to invest a reasonable amount of time and money. Time and money. If those criteria fit you, if you fit those criteria, then you want to schedule a breakthrough session. Please don't schedule the session if you're not willing to do that. Because in the session, we're going to be looking at exactly what you need to do to move forward. So I want you to go ahead and take a look at my coaching programs. I want you to see the pricing and say, okay, this is what it costs. I can't afford that. Or, okay, this is what it costs. It's going to hurt, but I think this is an investment. Because that's the only question, right? Is this a good investment or not? Will this work for me? I have enough reviews and testimonials. I just can't get that many reviews and testimonials if this doesn't work. Now, this doesn't work for everyone, right? What are you saying, Michael? It doesn't work for a person who simply quits or who simply doesn't put in the time. I say this all the time. If you're learning a new language, and this is so much like learning a new language. If you're learning a new language, you got to learn the language. There are various ways to do that. I give you those ways. You have to practice it, and then you have to go out and use it in real life. And the more you do those things, the more you learn, the more you practice, the more you use it, the more fluent you become, and the sooner your fluency becomes automatic. The sooner you reach automaticity. This process is the same way. I'm going to give you stuff to learn. You're going to learn a new way of thinking and a new way of speaking. Then you're going to practice this every day. Then you're going to go out and you're going to use it in your meeting. So don't say, oh, well, I need more time. No, being busy is good, right? That's good because then you get to actually use what you're learning, implement it, execute it in your everyday speech, in your everyday life. That's what we're looking for, right? So this isn't something you take time out for. It's something you integrate into your day. So if you want to schedule a session with me, you need to meet those criteria. And I'm going to be surveying and I'm going to ask you. And if you come into a session and you just want to get in there and you just want to talk to me and you're not serious, then we're going to cut the session short, because I only want to work for people who are serious about working on their speech, who want to get out there, who want to serve other people, who want to take the limits off of their life. Those are the people I want to work with. Okay, so if you want to work with me and you believe that I can help you, schedule a breakthrough session. For those of you that are not quite ready for coaching, for whatever reason, that you still want this system, you're going to want to take a look at the self-study premium. Okay, 10% off the next 24 hours. For those of you, here's something else. For those of you that schedule a breakthrough session with me and say, you know what, this is right, I'm ready to move on it. When you register right then and you pay in full, I'm going to give you a fast action discount of $500 off any coaching package. I have 2 packages. You can look and you can see the numbers on those. $500 off. When you're ready to do it, you do it right then within 24 hours. You pay in full, $500 off. Okay, fast action discount. Why do I do that? Because I have so many people. Literally, I have people, tens of thousands of people on my list. Been there for years, and for whatever reason, they haven't taken action yet. They've tried to do it on their own, and they finally come and they finally enroll in something, and they tell me, oh, I wished I'd done this earlier. I wished I did this earlier. So I want to incentivize you to take action sooner rather than later, because I know it's going to help you. I know it works. If you do the work, I know it's going to work, and you're going to be amazed at the results. You're going to have to work hard, but I know it works. I want to incentivize you to take action now and not, oh, I'm not sure if this will work. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it. I'm not, no, it works if you do it. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to see if there are any questions here. And feel free to always send me your questions via email. Visit our website at pro90d.com. Just going to write that up here. Most of you know it already. pro90 pro90d.com. Okay, visit us there. All of our resources are there. And you can contact me in a couple of different ways. You can go to the Contact Us tab, or it's a little chat bubble in the bottom. And if you put your email address in there, if I'm not there, my staff is not there, then we'll be able to get back with you via email. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and do that. Okay. So just in summary, and then we'll be done. The number one reason why you stutter and how to fix it, let's talk about the number one reason why, is anticipation. Anticipation. So it's going out and taking a situation that's about to happen. You're going out, you're imagining it, you're thinking about all the bad things that can happen, right? Or all the things that happened before and that you hope don't happen. So when you anticipate, then what you're doing is you're literally setting yourself up by shifting your focus off of 2 things, clarity and impact. I want to make this clear. I want to make sure that it impacts them, that it persuades them, that it gets them to do whatever it is to give you the information. It takes your mind off of that and puts it on something that it doesn't need to be on. It shifts your focus, your train of thinking. So what you have to do, the 2 solutions, how to fix it, is take control of your train of thinking. How do you do that? Inner dialogue. That's one way, right? Inner dialogue, self-talk. Talk to yourself, leading up to as well as in the situation. And number 2, you constantly you bathe your mind with positive, inspirational, and instructional content, material, audio. Now, how do you do these 2 things? Well, one way is you use the Pro90D speech system, where I've already put together a series of audios and videos that will give you the dialogue that you want to use, that you want to say to yourself, and will provide you with the audio to help bathe your mind. You can take advantage of that in a self-study or self-study premium. You'll get 10% off if you take advantage in the next 24 hours. And or for those of you that are ready, that want to accelerate the process. The self-study for many people is a slower process. It works, but it's slower because you're working on your own. People get distracted. They get discouraged. Things happen. When you're working with a coach, It's more focused. You get accountability. You get evaluation. You get feedback. You get encouragement. You get there faster if you do the work. I still can't make you do the work, but you're more likely to do the work when you pay, when you're accountable. Does that make sense? And for those of you that schedule a session and say, yes, this is what I want to do, you can get a $500 fast action discount. That's not a little bit of money. Okay. So thank you so much for being here today. Just going to step over here, see if there are any questions or comments. If not, and I look forward to seeing you inside a breakthrough session or inside of our course. Once again, my name is Michael Williams.